Sonic 3 could be racing like a blur to beat Mufasa the Lion King, and it could be something Disney cannot stand. And why? Well, it turns out that Paramount is a big fan of winning. And now they're declaring that not only are they prepared to beat Mufasa and his gang of African animals, but Sonic and his pals are likely to return. Sonic 4 already announced. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the place where we pounce on the truth and we hold on to it because we believe it is the thing that drives all of us together. The truth. We love it. And we believe that Hollywood has been far from it. But now, some indications they're preparing to move back to the sensible center. We hope so. Folks, as we get ready to talk about Sonic 3 and its dominance that we believe it could be, loop-de-looping around Disney, consider clicking that like button, and let's start grabbing rings together. Panel, let's go. All right, we're talking Sonic 3 now, folks. It's important. Here we go. This from IGN, and they are getting raked over the coals about it. It says, better jokes, better imagery, 2 inspired comic performances by Jim Carrey give this Sonic the Hedgehog 3 an edge on its predecessors. So what did they give it? Well, let's look. Here's their review. All positive, all positive, all positive, all positive. Just trust me, it's all positive. And a 6. They gave it a
wild.
They gave it
well, you know what I always do when I see that? I look straight into who it is. I've never heard of A. Dowd before, so now I want to find out what this person's history is.
Absolutely.
To see what their biases are, because they all have bias. And sometimes they're pretty outwardly facing. It's fascinating.
We know IGN has been accused of bias long-term about being against certain companies and franchises. So they have a history of being against Sonic. But it turns out that Sonic is doing quite well with everybody else. 85%. And guys, I'd have to go back and look and see. But in terms of CGI characters in the real world, these kinds of movies, the Alvin and Chipmunks kinds of movies, I don't remember one that's been reviewed this well. I think this might be the best so far reviewed live action with a CGI character kind of movie. Now, 85% is tremendous. And it, by the way, points to the idea that Sonic and Paramount and SEGA, they may beat Disney and Mufasa, despite everything Disney has thrown at Mufasa. And folks, let me tell you, one of the craziest things you'll see, Mufasa, I said it would have they would get it out of rotten territory by now. They still need 2 points to get it out of rotten. So Disney, despite every attempt, Mufasa the Lion King over on the right, still at 58%. So I am now reassessing, and I think Sonic 3 will edge out Mufasa because Mufasa is getting such terrible coverage. There is such a reduction in enthusiasm for the Lion King, this version of it. The soundtrack is not catchy. Nobody's playing it. And so when you put all those things together, all those factors together, despite Disney's every effort with this massive marketing campaign, combined with them edging Paramount out of the best screens and the highest ticket prices by leveraging their contacts at the theaters, I still think that Sonic 3 now is going to run loop-de-loops around the Lion King. I think Sonic 3 is going to win, and this 85% score for it is phenomenal. Panel, what say you, and are you going to be eating chili dogs with Sonic this weekend?
Well, first thing I would say to that is that Sonic is at an 85, and Mufasa is the inverse of that at a 58, which is very interesting. But we have an article up on thatparkplace.com right now that gives the actual projections. Sonic 3 is projected to beat Mufasa at the domestic box office this weekend. Now, that's an important distinction because one thing we have to remember here is that Mufasa will win the international box office this weekend because Sonic doesn't come out internationally until Christmas Day. So when we compare these two films, we have to compare it on a domestic box office level this weekend. Sonic is projected to make about $60 million in its opening weekend in North America on 3,800 screens, while The Lion King is projected to make around $50 million on 4,000 screens. And now the thing to remember here, or 4,000 theaters, the thing to remember here, The Lion King is on more screens. The Lion King has got IMAX. The Lion King has got Dolby. The Lion King has got 4DX, and the Lion King has got 3D. None of which Sonic has, and Sonic is still going to outdo it.
And Disney will try to. We know what's going to happen here. Disney is going to come out, and probably with commercials. They're probably going to put this all the way out into the marketing side of things. They'll probably talk about the international, the global, the worldwide box office, and they'll ignore as best they can the domestic. Paramount's going to, of course, emphasize that, hey, we don't even have Sonic out in these other territories yet. And yet, Disney's marketing machine will likely win there, but it won't matter because ultimately, 6, 7, 8 weeks into this, we're going to know who the overall winner is. And I think Sonic 3 is going to be the one that gets there at the end, the fastest, the best, the biggest, the brightest, everything that you want to see out of the blue blur. So,
well, if these reviews, Pro, are to be believed, then I think what you're going to see with Mufasa is the Moana 2 effect, where yes, maybe it'll open well, but then the the critical response will draw people away from it. We've seen Moana 2 stall out and completely halt its box office momentum. Now, a movie that was supposed to make $2 billion can barely get to $750 million.
Now, I do want to point out that the reason that this is newsworthy, it's not just this. If we only focused on the box office here, we would be missing out on the culture curve. And we never miss the culture curve here, folks. Ever, never, never. What am I talking about? Well, think about the stories we've been covering. We have covered the what would you say, the collapse, I hope, for Alyssa Mercante and the effort to silence Smash JT and the uprising of an entire community to support him. We've talked about the Superman trailer and how James Gunn and DC are aiming for optimism and the end of destructionism for characters, whether they succeed or not. And now we're talking about Sonic 3. And guess what, folks? There's something bigger going on with Sonic 3 that we need to discuss. And that is, look at this. The top video games in America, according to Nielsen. I just want to run through this chart because I think that Sonic 3 being a video game character and going against Lion King, which Lion King is gently woke, is what I'm hearing. Lion King is a very gentle, kind of semi-woke film, and Sonic is very much not. And I think that's, by the way, why IGN might not be so hot on Sonic 3, is because they want it wokeified, maybe. All right, so let's look at the Nielsen data. Talking about video games. Grand Theft Auto at the top spot, followed by Fortnite. Marvel's Spider-Man 2, okay? And I get the complaints there. But then Marvel Rivals, which is distinctly as about unwoke as you can get. Minecraft, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Grand Theft Autos again, Roblox. You've got PBD down there, and then you've got Tekken. All right, or PBG, excuse me. PBG and Tekken. All right. When I look at this chart and I see what people are playing, you know what I don't see? I don't see Discord. You know what I see? I don't see Dustborn. I don't see Kill the Justice League. I can keep going. I can keep naming. I don't see Star Wars Outlaws. I don't see the games that have tanked the gaming industry. I see other games rising up to take their place and other studios succeeding because of it, with a few exceptions that are driven by brand recognition. And I think that optimism, that hope, I think the culture has utterly and totally shifted. And the reason that you're going to see Sonic 3 succeed, I believe, is because people want to have fun again. They want to have hope again. And they don't want to get the modern message anymore. They're done with it, and it's on the wrong side of history. JT, what say you?
So just doing some brief research still on that guy that did the review on Sonic. He gave Deadpool and Wolverine, which I have not seen yet. Still want to see it. He gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So he gave that a lower score. I've heard raving about how great that is. He overall, overwhelmingly, just looking through all his reviews, they all seem very low for anything. He said Beetlejuice gets a 1.5 star.
I thought Beetlejuice is one of the best movies of the year.
So it's just stuff like that. It's like, well, this is just someone that comes in. I think there's some critics out there. They're just like so full of themselves. They're like, oh no, I'm just going to give low scores. That's kind of my thing. And it just kind of feels like that's who we're dealing with this. What they give it.
So let's say you're IGN
Mhm.
and you've got Mufasa and you've got Sonic 3 and you're IGN and you're supposed to be like you believe that you nudge the market in particular directions, right? Because you're IGN, you're big, you're bold, people listen to you, right?
Yep.
That's what you believe. I'm not suggesting it's true. I think the leadership at IGN, they probably know who their critics are that review things favorably and unfavorably. And I'm not saying this happened. I'm just speculating that if I were IGN and I wanted to give a boost to Mufasa and I wanted to down Sonic and get favorable to Disney, I'm picking the critic that's going to give me the best chance of being like, Sonic's stinky. Sonic smells, man.
It's proven that's what they did with Dragon Age the Veilguard, where they gave it to a trans person to review it. It's like, well, what kind of score do you think you're going to get out of that when it's a game heavily based on trans ideologies?
Now, speaking of all that, though, Smash, we need to interrupt because our panelists here have done a great job of catching this. All right, folks, just breaking in the last 10 minutes. Luis Fernando, who is not at all coordinating with our show, said, and yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is not even out yet, but Paramount is so over the moon by the fact that it's going to probably beat Mufasa this Christmas quarter at US that they don't even care anymore. They have just announced Sonic the Hedgehog 4 is in development, and they are eyeing a 2027 release.
Huge.
So there you go, folks. Breaking right now on the show. Again, we did not coordinate with Paramount nor with Louise. I don't know why they did this right as we were doing this topic, but within the last 10 minutes, that has been announced. Sonic 4 is on the way.
I think
my take on this is it prints money, so I'm not shocked at all. In fact, this is the kind of thing where you can just keep making these movies and just keep printing money until that dies out. So I'm not shocked at all.
All right,
you can keep making them as long as Jim Carrey agrees to keep doing them.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, they could move on from it, though. They could do. There are directions that could go, but that's a good point. It's almost like the whole when Steve Jobs, when he passed away with Apple, could Apple still be successful type thing? It's like, well, it is because it's really the brand is carrying it, and people, yes, go to see Jim Carrey, but at the end of the day, speaking from a father's perspective, my kids love Sonic because of Sonic. They don't really give a shit about Jim Carrey's cool, that they like him.
Well, I don't think you can tell a Sonic story without Eggman, and I don't think that you can recast him at this point because he's so iconic as Jim Carrey.
I'm going to say the kids will show up no matter what for these. These are $150 million to make, and they keep the budgets low on them. And as long as they can keep having Ben Schwartz in that role, I think they're fine. I'm not saying they don't need Jim Carrey. I love Jim Carrey. He is hilarious and he's great. And nobody does physical comedy like Jim Carrey. So I love Jim Carrey. But if he backs out, I think I'm going to give at least one more movie a chance. Why will I give one more movie a chance? Because my kids will not stop talking about this movie.
Well, this is different because it's a character that the movie's based around. It's not like a person.
Right.
So yeah, sure, these people are involved and they're important, like Ben Schwartz. Yeah, I get it. But again, you can make this game this movie for eternity and just have a revolving cast. And sure, it's not going to be as good as the purists like us care about, but for kids going to a movie seeing Sonic, that's what they care about.
It's really pointing towards, it was said in the 90s that Sonic was the perfect design because it's blue, it's spiky, it's cool, it's fast. There were actually, marketing people who looked at this and did a study and said that of all the characters, Sonic was the best, most popular design you could come up with for little boys. And it's hard not to agree with that. But I want to get Vash's thought on this because Vash, you have said in the past that Disney has some worries. And I'm just curious if you think that investors now are going to notice if Sonic runs laps around Lion King.
Yeah. As Marvin beautifully pointed out, the per theater average for Sonic 3 is super high. I mean, with all those PLFs that Mufasa is getting out the gate, the fact that Sonic 3 could outperform it in this way is a big, big deal. I think Luis Fernando exactly correct. The fact that that might actually occur is why they've come forward with the Sonic 4 news at this point. And I'm looking at the Rotten Tomato score for both Sonic 3 and Mufasa. Mufasa being at 59% right now, Sonic 3 being 86%. I believe Luis was also saying that that was the highest video game adaptation score ever received for a film of its type on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's a huge, huge sign that they're very positive about this film and so forth. I think investors might start taking a look at the creative output of Disney, especially as it relates to something like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 being beat out in this fashion. It shouldn't happen, especially with Lion King amassing such a unbelievable gross as it did back when it was originally released. This shouldn't occur. The fact that it is very, I would say, concerning if you were an investor.
I'll tell you, Disney released a statement the other day that basically parroted exactly what we've told them to say for 2 years. So I'm going to start giving Paramount some advice now. Since Disney's listening to us, maybe Paramount will as well. Dear Paramount, you should make a Sega cinematic universe. Like, go for it. Throw everything you've got behind it. You're small, you're struggling, and this is calling for you to do it because you can lap Disney if you will just go for this. Nintendo has they've kind of screwed the pooch a little bit because they're not rolling out the NCU, and it may already be stalled out completely, and that opens the door for a Sega cinematic universe. I know that Jet Set Radio is nowhere near as popular as Metroid. Like, I get that you quickly fall off after you leave Sonic. It doesn't matter. Develop this. Go for it. Do it. It's a great brand, and that's where they need to be. Marvin, I know you've got one last point, and then we'll wrap up there.
Well, I think all of us were of the target age during the Disney Renaissance when The Lion King came out, right? Lion King was a boys brand. It was made for boys. It's about fathers and sons. It's about coming of age. But it's more of Disney has squandered its boy demographic. It's they had the market cornered with things like Lion King, but they also had Marvel, they had Star Wars. Then they decided those needed to be girl brands. They've completely collapsed the entire brand, and that literally pushes young boys into things like Sonic, like Mario. Disney has done this to themselves. This is a failure and a loss that Disney has orchestrated themselves through their own divisive tactics and through pushing away a demographic that is huge in this country that they did not think mattered anymore.
That's a fantastic point. As Disney has abdicated the boy family demographic, others can take that place, and we're excited for them to do so. Well, folks, we've come to the end of another video of pure excellence and fun, explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. That's what we hope you believe we've just done. And why should you believe it? Well, because we've done our very best to make it so, to be true, to be factual, and to do what the mainstream so-called access journalists simply won't. Folks, you can help share this out across the fruited plains of YouTube by clicking the like button, share, subscribe. Click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, as we get ready to say sayonara for now, we ask that you keep learning, keep growing, and wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep having fun.